Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Sargent. This part number is a 2860 10G05 LL26D is what it is. This is a grade 1 lever lock in short. And this first part of the video will just be a visual tour of the lock itself. When you take it out of the box, you're going to have all the primary components. Obviously the exterior assembly, the chassis, just like you would with any other lock. The 60 in the part number, and we're going to dissect the part number, does mean large format interchangeable core, standard Sargent. Sargent is what it is. So that is, and it will include a black construction core inside of this. So that's what that is. That's the 60 in the part number. This client is a hospital, and their installed key system is Sargent removable core, or interchangeable core, I should say. There's a difference between interchangeable and removable. Those terms are not the same. They mean different things. The proper term for this is interchangeable core. A removable core, and you know, I suffer from a lack of actual items that I have a lot of experience with when it comes to a removable core. A removable core is a core in a lock that you can remove. But I don't mean take it apart and remove screws and pull the cylinder out. I mean it's a bad example, but the Schlage G-lock was a removable core. You could remove that core and cylinder housing out of that lock to be able to service it. There is a platform of a U-change cylinder is a bad example because that's just keying. I would have to think of a better example of a removable core. But when it comes to the word interchangeable, that means that with a special tool, which could be a control key, you can extract the core only, meaning the plug and its shell and how it's combinated, and insert that back into the lock. But the defining characteristic is that platform, that plug and its shell, the core, can usually go, and this is part of the defining characteristic of interchangeable, through any part, any lock within the manufacturer's entire ecosystem. So the large format, it's Sargent, so their standard is large format. They can also do small format. Think Best and any clone of it, Falcon Arrow, and a million other people who have cloned that Best 100-year-old lock core type at this point. But a good place to probably look at the definition of those would be the List Council's dictionary, and I'll show you that in a moment. A removable core is a core that can be taken out without disassembly of the lock, is my working definition. Interchangeable core is a core that can be removed with a tool, usually a control key, and can then be inserted into other locks. So what are other locks that Sargent has? Okay, they don't only have the 10 series. They've got other series of locks that are cylindrical. They have, of course, mortise locks that will take mortise cylinder housings, rim cylinder housings, and the way in which you apply those types of cylinders to different locks, like a key removable mullion or an exit device trim. So that same core can work through the entire family. And it's generally that there is no exclusions to that when you have a manufacturer-specific platform. So when you're dealing with Sargent, we're talking interchangeable core Sargent. You're thinking their Sargent's interchangeable core, not Corbin's or Yale's or Russwin's or anyone else's. There is, so forget removable core. removable core, I should never have said that word. This is not removable core. I can remove the interchangeable core. So anyway, not to beleaguer it too much further, I do believe that I've dug us into a hole. So let's switch to the screen view and let's look at the proper industry definition for those two terms, because it is one that's worth us reviewing so that we're better equipped to understand interchangeable, removable. Let's do that right now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, so just I don't want to leave something unanswered or unclear. I feel like I made it worse initially about removable and interchangeable. So this is the hardware that we're working on. In our site, wherever you find the word manufacturers, click on that. And then you're going to go to the ABS page, Control F, ABS. That's Architectural Builder Supply, that's us. This is the page where I keep encyclopedic documents for not my personal use, but resource documents. It's my bookshelf, my bookcase, my electronic bookcase. List, counsel, locksmith, dictionary. That's what you're looking for. So let's Control F, removable. Removable core, it's alphabetic, one whose design limits its installation to one or more specific types of housing or shell from a given manufacturer. So what I was saying earlier about removable means it's only going to work for that one lock. So you can relatively easily remove the core like you could with the Schlage G lock, but you can't stick that Schlage G cylinder into their B400 series deadbolt. Both are long discontinued. So that is the defining characteristic there. Interchangeable. A key removable core, which can be used in all or most of the core manufacturer's product line. No tools other than a control key are required for removal of the core. That's the defining characteristic. As I said earlier, if you've got a Sargent interchangeable core, that'll fit into their cylindricals, their mortise rim cylinder housings, unit locks if they still make those, whether it be exit device trim or key removable mullions. That's the characteristic. That 60 in the part number allows me to pull that core out with its control key from that door and go stick it in another piece of hardware by Sargent that's been prepped for their interchangeable core, which we do call large format, which distinguishes it from small format, which is best in all of the clones of best. So small format is best in all the clones. Interchangeable, full size, small format is best in all of its clones. Large format is everyone else, including Schlage, who happens to call it full-size interchangeable core. So it's either small format or large format. And Sargent can produce hardware that will take small and large format. But when we're talking about this lock, it's a 60 prefix, which means they're large format interchangeable core. Okay, we have put that matter to rest. Let's continue on with this video. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, let's jump back into our product tour. So we've got, the business end of this lock, so to speak. This is a grade 1 cylindrical lock. They're 10 series. The 05 is the function. This is an entrance function. It's a push turn. No, it's an office function is what it is. An 05 must be an off. Yeah, an 05 is an office function. It is a push button only, and what that means is a couple of things. It can act as it acts as two functions. It acts as a passage set. You can always exit. You can always enter. Until you push that button in, then it disables the exterior, turning it into a storeroom function. It's a little misleading to say that it acts as two functions, but in a certain sense it does. Until you rotate the inside trim and then it's unlocked, or, well, you know what, I don't know that that's the case. Yeah, it will be. Or until you push the latch bolt in, meaning, oh, it actually does not work. There are restoring and non-restoring latch bolts. This one does not act. So when you pull the door closed and the latch bolt gets depressed, it will not unlock the exterior. I would imagine Sargent has a version of that that will unlock. So in that sense, if you were to locked on the outside, you exit by rotating the inside lever. If you were to hit that button and pull the door closed, it's now locked. So that would be the function of this. They also make them such that when that latch bolt is depressed, it will pop that button out. So I'm pushing in the retractor, and it will make that happen. But depressing the latch bolt, meaning pulling the door closed, does not. If I can discover that when we look at the catalog, we will. Your inside rose, scalp assembly. Pretty easy, simple and straightforward. Those screws are captive on there. The lock manufacturers of the world are really exerting a lot of energy to make lock assembly such that you can do it blindfolded. Latch bolt. Interesting on this latch bolt. To you, that might look like it's flat. No, it looks like it's beveled to me. I did not specify the hand on this order. And this is not a floating faceplate latch bolt. This is a left hand or a right hand reverse. Huh. I would expect that to float, that faceplate. Speaking of the latch bolt itself, it does have UL. You're not going to be able to see that really well. It does say, it has the UL stamp on it and some numbers, which are record locators, which means this is permissible for use on a fire door because it is not only a listed product, it's been tested, but it's labeled. Almost everything on a door has to bear a label if it's in a fire-rated opening. The door, the frame, the closer, the lock, everything. A kick plate. The only thing that generally doesn't would be the steel or non-ferrous based ball bearing hinges. Those don't have to have a label on them. They're listed, they've been tested, but they don't have to have the stamp. Now, if it's a spring hinge, then interestingly enough, they must have a label on them, a stamp. This is 2 3/4. There's nothing on here that you can measure that will show you it's 2 3/4. I can tell by my eye that that's 2 3/4 because cylindrical locks are measured from the edge of the door to the center of that 2 1/8 inch hole. That's 2 3/4. This I can tell is 2 3/4. Other backset options from Sargent are certainly going to be 2 3/8, 2 3/4, 3 3/4, 5 inch. They may be able to do other odd backsets as well. We'll take a look. There's nothing else in here except the strike, which is the 28 in the part number that I have, and I don't believe that 28 actually belongs in that part number. Actually, it might. It does. So the 28 for Sargent means standard ASA 4 7/8 strike. This is going to be, like I said, 4 7/8 tall. Like 4 7/8, that's the height. The overall width is about 1 7/8. However, that's not how strikes are measured. They're measured from the center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip. 1 1/4 is going to be really close to a standard dimension for commercial projects. 1 3/16, 1 1/4, it's going to be right there. Residential, it's usually closer to 1 1/8 if it's a full lip strike. And when you call out a strike, if you were to call out a 28 and then give it 1 3/4, okay, that's an extended lip strike. Center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip is 1 3/4. Why would you need that? Applied trim, applied paneling on a door, a deep inset in a reverse bevel door. So when you're thinking about the strike that you're going to use on the job, equally important is to think about the lip length. You can almost always get away with the standard because it almost always works. There are times when it doesn't, and we certainly sell a lot of extended lip strikes, or even strikes technically almost without a lip, like a 7/8 inch strike. What would you use a 7/8 for? Center line of the hole to the edge of the lip, 7/8. Pair of hollow metal doors, pair of any doors, with a flat astragal welded or screwed or attached on one side. You need no lip. If you work in the door industry long enough, you're going to either grind the lip of a strike off or you're going to see one that's been ground off. So it could be that you need a 10G05, and this strike ain't going to work because it's a pair of doors with a flat astragal outside. You might need a 7/8. Or your astragal set might have a slot cut out in that offset bar that will allow the strike lip to come through. After that, we have our package of hardware. We have screws for the latch bolt. We have screws for the strike plate. We've got 2 additional screws in there, and admittedly, I don't know what they're for. And then the and then the tool, the lever release tool. Yeah, there's a couple of pan head screws that have self-drilling points on them. I can't tell you what those are for just yet. Also, excuse me, the template hit the floor. Here is your template that's included. That's odd, the way that they print that and then reference 2 3/4. You'll fold that over. It's perforated. You'll fold that over the edge of the door and then mark your 2 3/4 back set. Now, what's interesting about that? Yeah, that's no good. This is no good. Edge of that template to the center of that hole is exactly what you'd expect it, 2 3/4. Why is that no good? We're going to talk about that. Those two, I have the installation instructions, which are the last piece in the box. Yeah, there's a couple of those 2 small screws are number 3 mounting plate, 6 3/4 self-tapping. They're really self-drilling. Screws are going to go on the inside. Okay, so yeah, where those go, are apparently here and here. So when you get, you get this onto the door, you get this installed, these screws are into the outside chassis, your lever through bolt holes. They've got those extra small screws, I guess, to just put this plate on. It's a bit foreign to me that you would use those or need them, but the installation instructions call them out. Now, what's interesting about the installation instructions, we know that this is a fire-rated lock. If you were missing any part of what's in the installation instructions, let's say, here's the trick question, if you installed this lock without those number 3 screws, do you have a fire-rated opening? Well, the answer is no. The reason is that lock is probably not going to fail in a fire test because you've missed those. Maybe it would, who knows? But because the installation instructions call them out, that's what requires it. And that classic question always comes up. It's funny how often we sell plastic covers for door closers. You have a fire-rated door in a hospital, one amongst hundreds, and you're missing that plastic cover. Do you have a fire-rated door? The answer is no, you don't. And, well, actually, no, the answer is it depends, but you probably don't. It depends because do the installation instructions call out you putting that cover on? And if they do, then the answer is no, you don't. So we do sell plastic covers to guys who do field mitigation of doors that have failed a fire door assembly inspection. Lots of, there are occupancies that are obligated to test and to be compliant. So let's talk about why this template shouldn't be trusted. Maybe not a big deal, but you do it wrong one time and you'll say, aha, I'm never going to do that again. Let's talk about that now. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about why that template is not really ideal. Okay, what I'm attempting to show here is square edge doors, radiused edge doors, rabbited edge doors, beveled edge doors. Obviously, you're dealing with beveled edge. You're dealing with square edge the majority of the time. If I put my tape measure from here and go back 2 3/4, and I do that here, 2 3/4, I'm good. You try that same trick on a beveled edge door, and you're going to be in the wrong place. Now, lock sets today really will tolerate being off ever so slightly, but the truth of the matter is, if you've ever wondered why that fit wasn't correct, or you've drilled a door and just pulled 2 3/4 from either side, and the hole wasn't exact, that's why. The important part is, you can get away with that on a lock set usually, or a deadbolt, but if you try that same trick with a door viewer, it's going to be a problem, because that bezel around a door viewer, that margin is extremely small. So be mindful when you're marking. You're going to need, you're going to need to measure a little longer than 2 3/4 on one side and a little shorter on 2 3/4, because (1/8 and 2). For every 2 inch of door thickness, that bevel difference between here and here is 1/8. So you've got a 1/16 over here, not quite, but about a 1/16 and about a 1/16 over here to contend with. So be mindful of that. Now, let's take a look at some images that we have linked to down below. Okay, here's the box. 4 7/8 strike. Let's dissect it. 4 7/8 strike, large format interchangeable core. 10 series. 05 is the office function like we talked about earlier. The G means guarded. It means that the latch bolt is going to have a deadlocking tab to it. There's U and G from Sargent, unguarded and guarded. Guarded means it's going to almost always be a keyed lock, but you can put a deadlocking latch bolt onto a exit lock that is just a knob only. We've got an L rose. We've got an L lever. We've got satin chrome. 1 1/4. That's a reference again to the lip length of the strike of the 28. BLK PLS. I don't know what that means. Black plastic. I'm not sure. There's nothing in here that's black plastic. 1 3/4 thick door. That's what it looks like when you open the box. The contents. That's the guarded component of the latch bolt, that deadlocking tab. Different perspectives on, well, there is some black plastic. Different perspectives on the lock. The back side of the lever has a small amount of, I sure would not call it knurled, but it's not smooth. It is very marginally textured. Another set of images here as well. The rose. The back side of that rose. Those two weird screws are going to go, I think, here and here. The latch bolt. Oh, great shot of the deadlocking tab. So when that is properly installed, that deadlocking tab is held retract it all the way inside the latch body. Then you can't push the latch bolt in at all. Makes it it prevents someone from lloyding the latch bolt, L-O-I-D-I-N-G, lloyding. Let's go back to our list console. That's an actual term. It is just not a term in the list console dictionary. Yeah, it's in LockWiki. Lloyding or carting is a bypass technique that uses a flat object, such as a credit card, etc., to retract inward opening spring-supported latches. Yeah, I would say outward opening, actually. If it's inward opening, you really can't get to it. The flat object, referred to as a shim or lloyd, is slid between the latch and the strike plate and used to push the latch back or retract the latch. Some modern spring latch doors use a dead latch or deadlocking plunger to prevent lloyding. Lloyding may also be referred to as slipping or shimming, or jimmying, I suppose. Though that is a more generic technique used to open various types of locking mechanisms. The term lloyding comes from celluloid, used in early photographic and cinematic film, strips or sheets, cut to size, etc. Okay, you get the concept of what we're going for with that. This image is really to demonstrate the idea that is stamped, UL listed 304H. I had said, or 804H, I'm not sure. I said earlier that's a record locator. If you called up UL and said, I have this 804H, I need to know what that is, they could tell you, probably something about the test that was conducted on this hardware, and then the balance of what you get in the box. Okay. Now, let's go over the installation instructions, and we will talk about how to install this lock. Regarding the links to ads that you might see in this video, we do apologize for any interruption to a smooth viewing experience, and hopefully the ads that are being presented to you are related to the base product. And if there is something, feel free to click on those and perhaps consider taking a look at what that other advertiser is promoting. Let's get back to the video. Let's move into the documentation, the installation instructions first. Grade 1, Grade 2 cylindrical lever lock sets are generally all the same, but you'll find that if you apply the same logic to installing every lock, they may not go together the way that you expect. So I do suggest, if you have lots of experience, at a minimum scanning the installation instructions to make sure that there's nothing nuanced about the particular lock that might beguile you in the process of getting it installed. A nice set of installation instructions always includes a parts diagram so that you can first make sure that you have everything before you go to the job site to install it all. You don't want to obviously show up and call your distributor and say, yeah, I'm missing the inside lever. Well, that should have, frankly, that should have been discovered before the work was scheduled. It should never have been shipped incomplete the first time, or to begin with, but double checking it is the rule, not the exception. So it's nice to be able to look at all of this. I had questioned what part number 3 was. It was nice to be able to look at and see what it was. So 4 pages in this document, the balance of page 1, is the template, or how to drill the material. Okay. And as I'm scanning through this, fold template onto high edge of door. And when I do that, and I don't want to beat this any further, That's going to be reasonably agreeable because you'll be within a 1/16 of an inch of complete accuracy. Just don't put it on the low side of the bevel because then you'll definitely be off. If you're going to, you know what, actually, since I'm thinking of it, there is a tool that will solve the problem because of how it's angled. And I'll show it to you. It is a discontinued item. We may still have some left in stock. Bear with me as this Let's take a look at the instructions to see if it's indicated there. Unfortunately, the installation instructions don't appear to refer to... Yeah, they don't. I've been able to come up with the part number. It's 89925-001. Yeah, so installation kit part boring template. There is no image, but we can quickly show this to you in terms of what it looks like. Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of our... Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's basically... That's what it is. Piece of angled aluminum. It allows you to, because of its angle, it allows you to get the back set right on both sides. And that is, again, an 899-025. I believe at this time I have one, there are 2 left in stock. So by the time you're seeing this video, they'll be long gone most likely. But nonetheless, that's the concept. You can always find this item in our website so that you can review that video. But nonetheless, that's what it is. So, moving forward, after you have everything mortised, the first thing you'll do with a cylindrical lock is install the latch bolt. Pre-drill the holes naturally. And you're going to want to make sure that you get the exterior assembly installed and the latch bolt connected to the retracting hub correctly, because if you don't observe these little ears on the inside of the chassis, that latch bolt will slip out eventually. Sooner rather than later, you'll get a call that they rotate the lever, but the latch doesn't go back, and that can be an awful circumstance to be in. So you don't want to be a part of that. You want to make sure that it's connected properly. So through bolt and door thickness adjustment other than preset. So it's coming out to you for an 1 3/4 inch thick door. And if you recall, that size was on the label of the box. But you might have a 14 gauge steel stiffened hollow metal door and it's 1 7/8 inches. So you'll need to adjust that. And you're going to do so by backing out that spacer bushing there. That's right there. Okay. Remove outside lever, rose and spacer bushing. Rotate mounting plate to align with through bolts in door, or adjust mounting plate for proper door thickness. See markings in figure 7. Okay. Right in the middle there is where you'd want to be in that scenario. Once you have that installed, and yes, you're going to drill those through bolt holes at 12 and 6. These cannot be removed, not without you intentionally removing them. Obviously, don't do that. It's not the way it was designed. Through bolt holes, early grade 1 lever locks in the early 90s didn't have those, and they quickly appeared because you could put so much rotational force on these locks that the lock would stop working and the latch bolt would slide out of all of that. These tabs or ears would bend over, and you'd really get into a pinch. So your through bolt posts are in here. Your machine screws are going to run, your machine screws here are going to connect there, then those 2 other screws. Apparently the factory finds it necessary to additionally screw that inside rose assembly to the face of the door. This component is going to connect to the spring assembly, the springs that are inside of here, and that's what's going to keep the interior lever completely returning to horizontal. This inside of here. The rose scalp is here, obviously. Talking about how to remove the exterior should you need to, if you need to service the cylinder on the outside. This is a 60 function, so we are really not dealing with anything regarding that, except when you go to install your cores, you'll want to be mindful of making sure that they get installed correctly in terms of the coordination of the driver assembly in the back of the core, which is detailed here. It's a good idea to keep these plastic construction cores. You never know when you may need one. Remove temporary construction core or plastic core if keyed. Use control key. Rotate 15 degree. I know that that's a clockwise rotation. Insert the permanent core and then 15 degree counterclockwise and remove the control key, and that will leave the core captured inside of the lock. Your tailpiece will of course have to be installed correctly. These functions don't apply to what we're working on page 4. So really, for this lock, we've got a little bit of page 3. We have all of page 2 that applies, and all of page 1 that applies. So not too very much involved. When we get over to the template, this is what your door needs to look like, whether it be a, well, yeah. Hollow metal template is really what this is, but this is what your prep's going to look like. Your back set, your 2 holes, which are going to be detailed here, 1 5/16 from the center line. They are 7/16 diameter, a little bit larger than typical or other manufacturers. 2 1/4 tall latch bolt, 1 1/8 most likely is going to be all of the back sets, unless of course you have a 20 prefix, which would be a 1 inch wide. Those exist as well. Then we have a 10-line parts manual. This is really handy, especially for people. We have clients who manage entire hospital buildings, and yeah, they are constantly buying parts. And it's because buying part number one, the chassis assembly, or lock body assembly, Sargent calls it, it's a lot less expensive. It's substantially less expensive than buying the entire lock. So a nice thing about Sargent is they do a very upfront job about publishing parts drawings, so we have this there as well. And should you need to service your lock, this would be the document that you'd likely go to find out what parts you need. It's very possible that these part numbers are not easily searchable within our site, and that's because there's hundreds of thousands of part numbers, certainly when you include sizes and finishes and handings, so you may need to reach out to us for a cost and lead time on the lock body assembly. From page 10-2, lock body assemblies. Just for that, there's several dozen options available. Okay, there is a link below this. Let's see, we are on the wrong page. I think that was our part number. Yes. There is a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page within our site, and from here you can pull up not only all of the Sargent products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Then, also on this page is where we would locate all of the encyclopedic documents for Sargent. 8200 lock body parts manual, IC core pinning worksheet, template download center, lots of encyclopedic documents. 6300 removable core keying and assembly manual. I would say they should probably call that interchangeable core keying and assembly manual, because the 6300 is the part number for the core, for the interchangeable core of this system, the modern Sargent system. Sargent is not very difficult to get Sargent is, once you study it, Sargent is not an impossible system to learn relatively quickly. I found that I have reviewed, consulted multiple encyclopedic documents, books written by experts in the industry, and I could draw on those resources to again to be quickly up to speed on how to combinate interchangeable core. And really what you're determining is your relationship between your change keys and of course your control key and in the environment. As you can see, it's only a 9-page document. So this, along with other resources that you may have access to, you should be able to get yourself pretty far to be able to figure out how to combinate interchangeable core Sargent cylinders. I had mentioned that full line catalog for fun. If you want to see what Sargent was making in the past century, and even in the 19th century, we've got some really old catalogs here. Sargent's Book of Designs, 1902. What was Sargent doing 120 years ago? Well, here it is. Beautiful hardware, there's no doubt. I like one thing, if I'm watching a movie that's 80 years old, say the Marx Brothers, I often will be mindful of the hardware in the background because it's hardware that you do not see anymore, generally. Very ornate material would have been par for the course 120 years ago. If it's a major American manufacturer, it's likely that we do have archival catalogs, and we'll always keep them in this area. I know that we do for Yale, for Corbin, for Russwin, and competitors to the ASA Abloy brands. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, in conclusion, if you have any questions on this 10G series lock, please feel free to reach out to us. One item that I'm very grateful for when it comes to Sargent, frankly, is their exceptional technical support. I have naturally, like anyone would, if you're dealing with commercial building hardware, whether you're a distributor or an integrator, an installer, a general contractor, a specifier, an architect, sooner or later you're going to have a technical question that you're going to need help from the factory, and they do a really good job. And I remember the first time I saw their 8-line lock, knob lock, I had no idea how to take it apart. A very good client of mine asked me to go to his home and rekey his locks in his house, and I said, yes, of course I will do that. I'm thinking I'm going to bump into some garden variety lock. Well, I sure didn't. I bumped into an 8-line that basically has a roll pin concept that you have to drive out and remove just in order to get the trim off to get access to the cylinder. Well, quite frankly, that was, I'd never seen that, so it was extremely foreign. I was able to call, well, I first called a locksmith client of mine who said, oh yeah, I hate those. That's not what he said, but he was basically like, yeah, I hate running into those. He was able to acknowledge what they were. He told me how to do it, but his memory of how to do it, I think, was less than current. So I called the factory and was able to get someone who could literally walk me through the process. And I've been eternally grateful to Sargent for that very patient approach to helping me figure it out. I didn't want to tell this good client of mine, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've never seen it. You know, that's just not an option. Fast forward to about a year ago, I had a grade 1 lever, I think an 11 line, unequally extended, like for a 3-inch thick door, and I could not figure out how some component of it worked. And this tech support person at the plant literally put me on hold and went out to the shop to get one. And while they didn't have one that was extended for the door thickness, that part component in there, I needed to figure out how to disassemble. And they were able to actually get one and walk me through it over the telephone. So I'm very grateful to them for that. It's one of the reasons that you'll deal with Sargent, because they can support their installed base from a technical perspective. So if you have any questions on the 10 series, by Sargent or any other Sargent product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.